I have learned is a lot, everything. But specifically, I think what Bragg is dealing with during this high growth period, like you said, is a lot of kind of procurement delays, I think is pretty across the board, pretty common right now. And I think a lot of the lead times are longer. And what that makes it hard to do is plan for demand and volume, especially as a growing company. Because right, when you're growing, you don't always have the most foresight into what is going to happen. Things are, you're getting new customers, you're launching new products, it's happening really fast. And when these lead times for those products start to extend, you're asking, people who don't know the answer to have a volume and a forecast for you 3 months in advance. And they're like, we don't have that for you. We're growing. So it's kind of, to be a growing company right now amidst like lengthening lead times is tricky. And I think that that's something that Bragg has learned and it has managed has relatively well, but I think everybody's going through it right now, especially if they're a growing brand.
That is so true. And that's actually one of my favorite questions. It's like when somebody asks you a question about like, when do you think you'll have it done? Especially in my business. So like, when could you get this done? And then it's always like there's so many different elements in any business. Like, well, when are you going to get me the assets? Or when am I going to have this and this? And then they're always like, I love this one. Well, give me a ballpark. Give me a
Right.
ballpark, right?
I
Because
mean,
they
and
just want a date.
I know. And when you're launching new products, you don't always know. You're like, hey, so the buyer likes the product. When are we launching in that store or in that region, in that retailer? And they're like, I don't know. We have a X% likelihood. And now procurement is like, okay, so you have a 20% likelihood for 3 months out. Do I need to start planning it now because of the lead times? And so I think as right now, as we're dealing with some of this uncertainty, it's the planning has gotten trickier for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And why don't you give us, if you could just give us a little insight into like what exactly does your job entail as a supply chain manager? What does that mean?
Yeah, and just like any small company, this is flexible and changing and dynamic. I came in as a data analyst, so specifically, I built a lot of our data environment for viewing production adherence as well as forecast performance, inventory, weeks of stock, things like that. I've since stepped into the role of manager, so I manage our entire S&OP process. So what I do is I sit in the house between sales, strategy, sales, and I enable the relationship between sales and operations to make sure that we are flowing smoothly. So I really sit at that nexus of when we turn a forecast into an operating plan. And it's really fun. It's dynamic. It's exciting. But that's the main part of my day to day. And then I also help out with our sustainable journey as well.
Okay, so you mentioned working with sales, but how much do you work with marketing then? Because here's what I'm wondering. So obviously, Bragg is synonymous with this apple cider vinegar. We'll just say the basic flavor, right? But now you guys have come out with so many different new products like this pineapple turmeric that I am just loving. So what does that look like as far as innovation? Is that stuff coming through, I guess, technology and development? Is that something that you like sales leads, or is that something that's coming through marketing? And when this is all coming together, let's say a new product, when do they come to you and say, Ashton, we're doing this? And then do you ever have that moment where you're like, you know what? Not a good time to launch a pineapple product, guys. Really hard to get pineapple. Like, how does that whole
Um,
mix come together and how much involved in that are you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny. I laugh because I feel like every operations person ever to either listen to this podcast or just work in operations has had that moment where you're like, not a good time, guys, not a good time. I think every growing brand experiences that. And I do think that every growing brand handles new products and innovation differently. At Bragg, it's extremely collaborative. So I actually sit on the team and mostly as a kind of fly on the wall for our new projects. And I follow the process. And then at a certain point when we're ready to launch, that's when I step in and I start translating it over to my team for an operational plan. We have a lot of really good folks with hands in on that process, and it's sales members, it's marketing members, it's our design and our graphics, which I guess is in the marketing house, it's operations, we have our finance people. So it is an extremely collaborative process. And anybody will tell you who's working in this space that new products are hard. You can't, it is such a all-encompassing thing, and especially because Bragg is remote, trying to figure out how to launch these things is tricky. But I think that we are really getting our feet under us in doing this, and remaining uh remaining collaborative has been the key. has been the key on this.